to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles, touchdown.
Here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
Fields stumbling, trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown!
Hurts on first down, fires downfield. It's Deshaun Jackson back in the lineup. It's the last 7 games, and he will take it 81 yards. A somersault into the end zone. His first touchdown of the season.
You're listening to The Pigskin Project, the world's #1 football podcast. Now, with more insights on all things football, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen and Ryan Matthews.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 81st episode of The Pigskin Project. Started out how we always do. Ben, how you doing?
I am doing great. Just like it's been the last couple weeks, tired. Real busy day today. It's the first time I've been home in like 14 hours. So that's why we had to push it back just a little bit. For those wondering, that is 100% on me. It's good. College football is back this week. We'll get into a little bit more, but that has me hyped for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long week since the last time we had our actual episode. I've done
fantasy draft in between there.
I've had 3 in 3 consecutive. This is the first night since Saturday that I haven't had a fantasy football draft. Yeah. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, I mean, we had obviously our Lucas Oil Stadium game. I wish that it had gone a better direction. Unfortunately it didn't. But ever since then, I'm not going to lie to you, buddy, it's been kind of like a train wreck. So, we're looking up, it's going to be all right. And ultimately, as far as, everything else goes, football's coming back, and there's nothing on this planet, besides obviously, the little things, that make me, as happy as football does, you know what I mean? So,
last week for like 4 months that we won't have football.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, the football team, we lost 20-8 at Lucas Oil Stadium. Just tiny little mistakes, but we're making, improvements. It's just, there's a saying that I'd like to kind of establish for anybody that's listening that's affiliated with the team, or just in general. Basically, I don't remember verbatim what it is, but essentially it's like my greatest enemy is myself. So, with all of that, as much as it sucks that, we didn't win and stuff like that, you know what I mean? It's, ultimately boils down. Oh, here it is. To know the enemy is to know myself. That's what it is. And the first couple of weeks is just evident of that. And it is for every high school football team. So, it's important to kind of keep that in mind as we move forward and everything. But ultimately, I mean, still blessed to be able to do the job and everything, and keep, working with the kids and stuff. And I think going into conference play, if there's ever a week to where, if there's ever a couple weeks where we're okay with making a couple mistakes, it's weeks 1 and 2. And then from there, as you know, conference play kind of starts up and everything. So, it's starting to get a little intense, and I'm looking forward to the next update that we have. But do you have anything personally that, you'd like to share in addition to that before we get into, everything?
No, I mentioned it, I guess, a little bit on Monday for those who tuned into that or listened back to that. I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold. So just stay with me with a little bit of I know my voice sounds a little bit more nasally, and I'm going to try to mute myself when I have to kind of sniff, but just stay with me for those who are listening, and I apologize. I had a hand.
I get you for sure, man. I have really bad acid reflux going on right now. So it's
acid
horrible.
reflux will get you.
Yeah, so if you see me kind of like pausing for a second, it's to like try not to like hiccup. So then I'm also drinking this massive water right now. So hopefully that'll work. But
Amen. Yes.
let's get into it. Obviously, there's at least one guy that I really want to talk about that got pretty disappointing for roster
too.
cuts and everything. However, we got to get into the rest as well.
Ryan and Ben bring you weekly news.
So, obviously, there was a lot of news that came out this week. Lots of trades for kickers and everything like that as well. We're not covering everything here because that's just purely unrealistic for what we want the show to be. So really what this week is going to do, just because we do have to cover the greatest rivalry in the world's greatest sport, as the title says, you know, whatever. Yeah. You know, you know, we do have to cover, you know, a few things as well. So, you know, let's just dive right into it. So obviously weekly news is going to be a little bit shorter probably this week, but Cardinals cut quarterback Colt McCoy. Okay. Try and say that 5 times fast. That's quick. Anyways, so really, really tough. Hold on a second. I completely forgot to note this before we dive into it. I promised you guys 2 guests this week.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not coming to fruition. However, when the season starts, I do have people lined up, and it's not going to be an every week type thing, but you guys are going to see more guests than you're used to during the season. And one of them, I'll drop a little hint because it was a lot of fun to have them on the podcast, and they are a fan of a team that we are covering today. So that's your hint.
Who it is.
Anyways, so yeah, Colt McCoy got cut. So ultimately, this is probably the most obvious tank I think I've ever seen. You know, it's just, I mean, Kyler Murray is not the guy going forward.
I don't know if he will ever play a snap in a Cardinals uniform again.
Really? You're going as far as to say that?
Yeah, because if you're him and you're the Cardinals, as you just mentioned with the cutting of Colt McCoy, you kind of have to start thinking about this is the tank, like you said, and if you're Kyler Murray and the Cardinals come to you and say like, "Hey, we're tanking, we're gonna get Caleb Williams." If you're Kyler, you're gonna be like, "Awesome! I have no trade clause. I'm gonna decide where I'm gonna head out." So if you're Kyler, sit back. You know, you want to put yourself in a position where you can go and find like a team you want to play for, because you're not going to want to step back in after tearing your ACL for this god awful roster. Like, it's not going to look good. It's just going to hurt your trade value. It's good for both sides, honestly, if Kyler never plays again. But that might be like hot take-ish, but after everything happening, I don't think Kyler will ever play a snap in the Cardinals uniform again.
It's interesting just because you have a new head coach coming in and everything like that. Normally that signals rebuild time.
Exactly.
So, you know, going into it, it's just, I mean, Colt McCoy looked like he was going to be the bona fide starter. I don't know what happened in Arizona as far as training camp and why this was the surefire, you know, decision. But, you know, this one, you know, I want you to speak on a little bit. I also have to get my my MacBook charger, or not my MacBook charger. So I'll probably have to leave here briefly. But Ben, why don't you talk to us about your new tight end?
Yeah. The Eagles, like, I mean, it was like the bare minimum. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce his last name. I'm just gonna call him Albert O. For those who are kind of familiar, he came out of Mizzou 3 years ago, so he was going on to his last year of his rookie contract. And yesterday there was the rumor that he was going to get cut, he was going to get waived, and then that's when Howie kind of jumped on it and was like, "I'll give you guys a 6th round pick if you give us Albert O and a 7th round pick." So you barely give up anything. All it is ensuring that you get this guy in the building and you don't have to worry about him going through this waiver process. He's going to, at best, probably be tight end 3 for this team. he offers some nice like receiving upside and whatnot. But there's not much to it. I mean, he's 6'5", 260 and runs like a 2 or like a 4.4 or something. So there's not much to that trade, but kind of a trade that I was hoping that we'd see in kind of the deadline. And we talked about it a couple times, like throughout the last podcast, was Jonathan Taylor was given by 4:00 on Tuesday, we will like let you pick and find a trade. And if we can't, then we're going to keep you. Now he's put on like PUP. He won't play the first 4 games. Didn't find a trade, obviously. But kind of the most interesting thing that came out of that is because I'm not too surprised they didn't find a trade. But there was always this lingering like mystery team that, was put in like an offer and was interested in whatnot. And it came out that
So
mystery team was the
stupid, by the
Packers.
way.
It was the Packers. And then it got even worse than that because like an hour later, it came out, as we all knew, the Dolphins were interested in him. But then Chris Ballard was like, the only way you're getting him is if you give up Jalen Waddle. There's no way you're giving up Jalen Waddle for Jonathan Taylor. It just
I wouldn't do that in fantasy football.
I know. It's not looking ideal for Jonathan Taylor and even his odds for playing this season. But we'll see if he gets traded at the deadline this year.
Let me get a feel for your value for Jonathan Taylor here. First off, let me switch this. There we go. I probably sound a lot better. Anyway,
Yes.
So let me get your feel for Jonathan Taylor's trade value. What do you think is the most reasonable price for Jonathan Taylor? Because obviously some people were saying like, oh, they're looking for first round draft capital, stuff like that, like the value of that. I don't think that's even close to what,
No, I think if you're Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, I mean, I understand why you're asking for a first. Like it's not reasonable, but like you always work your way down. Like, because if you're going to ask for a second, you're not going to get a second. If you're going to ask for a third, you're not getting a third. So you always ask a little bit higher than what you're actually looking for. I think realistically, if you're Chris Ballard, you're going to say, I'm not doing anything more than a second. Like, if it's not a second, I don't want it. Like, at least give me a second round pick. But if I'm any other team, I'll be like, I'll give you a 3rd and a 5 for him. But you don't want to trade for a player that's not going to play the first 4 games. And then the whole thing, more than anything about this, is not even the player itself and his value as him. It's also, and I think this is what's holding up the trade, isn't even the draft compensation that goes for him. It's if you trade for him, you're also paying him $13 million a year, $14 million a year. And I really think that's what is holding this up. But I think if we see him get traded at the deadline to, let's say, a team like the Eagles or a team like the Bears, because they're surprising everyone, or the surprise team, my guess is like he's going to go there, finish out the year, and not get a new contract if he's traded at the deadline, and then he'll hit free agency next year, would be my guess. But to answer your question, if I'm Ballard, I'd want a second. If I'm another team, I'd give up like a 3rd and then like early to late day 3. So
okay. I was thinking a 2nd, maybe a 4th, so I might have overpaid if I'm a GM in your eyes. Anyways, this one we literally texted in the group chat separately about, and over every other cut. Bailey Zappi is gone. It's
wild.
I mean, looking at last year, right? Mac Jones looked like he was just a bridge quarterback last year. He didn't look great at all. So looking at Bailey Zappi coming in and performing close to the same as Mac Jones,
if not better. I mean, he looked real good, and like when he played, there was like a small majority of people saying like, "Oh, he might take the first team rep." But sorry for cutting you off.
No. And not only that, but they also cut Malik Cunningham. So Mac Jones, as of right now, is the only quarterback on the Patriots depth chart. And he got injured last year. That's the whole reason why Zappi subbed in. So, like, if you're the Patriots, you're obviously looking at the quarterback market right now in the waivers and everything. And I'm sure They're not just going to go into the season with one quarterback. I'm sure this isn't done yet. But I mean, this is just even more fuel to the fire as to why we're not that high on the Patriots. We talk about like their offense and everything and how, Ramondre Stevenson, still serviceable running back. Their wide receiver core, probably it's like headlined by the most overrated wide receivers,
Yes.
Then you also have, tight end room, not really great. Their O-line is mid. Their defense is really the strong suit, and it's not even that great. So if you're a Patriots fan, I'm sorry to tell you, but this is a throwaway season for you. But this is just absolutely stunning to me. I think this is a no-brainer. Looking at Malik Cunningham as well, he didn't have a bad preseason. I thought that, maybe if, maybe he could overtake somebody. I'm not entirely sure, but like Bailey Zappi was not the guy that I would expect the Patriots to get rid of.
No.
Next up, the Saints cut corner Bradley Toby. Okay, it's Roby, not Toby. Stupid autocorrect. Yeah, that one kind of surprised me as well. I don't really need to, touch on that too much though.
Yeah.
So the Giants wide receivers, Cole Beasley and Jamison Crowder got cut. And I made a note of this strictly because now they only have, I want to say, I think they also have 5 wide receivers on the team now.
The Eagles only have 4.
So it's just, I mean, right now, I might just be overreacting to a few of these because, like, I also put down the Buccaneers cut David Moore, and they only have 5 wide receivers on the team, and everybody knows how injury prone that whole Buccaneers team is. So, I mean, with everything like that, it might be an overreaction on my part strictly because of, how much still has to process in the next, say, 24 to 48 hours before people start, filing in.
Yes. And like, again, I'm sure people know this at this point, but like the most important thing to know is this is like the initial 53. This will, I guarantee you, for every single team, there will at least be one change by the time that your team plays week 1. So a lot of this stuff, for those who don't know, this kind of rules that have been changed. It's called the vested vet. So if you're no longer playing on your rookie contract and you weren't like claimed up as like as a training camp tryout or something. So if you've been in the league for more than 4 years, if a team cuts you, they don't have to go through waivers. They'll just automatically come back. So this is a lot of teams will cut their veteran players, and then I'm getting some static here. I'm sorry, guys. Cut their veteran players and then assign players to the IR, injury reserve, and then bring back those veterans. Because again, they don't have to worry about those veterans getting poached because the vested vets don't have to go through waivers. Give me 1 second here, guys. I'm gonna.
Yeah. I'm gonna move on from that point that he's talking about. As we kind of, progress through this list of stuff that we have to talk about. So the 49ers have traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys. And, this move ultimately just solidifies his status as a bust, in my opinion. I mean, ultimately, this raises 2 questions for me. First off, if you're a Dolphins fan, how you feeling? Because this is great. You pulled so much out of this trade. Second off, what does this mean about Dak Prescott and where he's at as a starting quarterback? And how Jerry Jones feels about him? Because there's another report that said if Jalen Hurts had fallen to the Cowboys, they would have picked him up as well. And that
which,
was
by the way,
ago.
That report made me so mad because Jalen Hurts was picked at pick 54. The Cowboys picked at pick 51.
So the
Cowboys totally could have had him. And if they would have fallen, he did fall to you, and you didn't pick him. Jerry just wants us to seem right and whatnot. But besides the point, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Well, looking at, I mean, I don't know. You could vent about the Cowboys probably all day, couldn't you? I mean, looking at this, I'm trying to look back at the draft because that's a solid point. They did pick up Trayvon Diggs, so it wasn't a bad pick.
No.
But what they were saying is if he could fall to if he fell to round 3, pick 82, that wasn't going to happen. No way. You're asking him to fall 29 more spots?
He was not going to get past the Bears. He wasn't going to get past the Bears.
Yeah. So, which, I mean, looking at that, man, that's even interesting because the Bears passed up on him as well.
I know.
And the Bears did not have a draft pick after that, in between theirs and the Cowboys' next pick. So even if, I'm just saying, I was advocating. Do you remember me advocating for Jalen Hurts to the Bears? Like,
we had a big conversation about it. I mean, me and you, like, before the draft, I was like, it'd be fun for the Bears, like, to get Jalen Hurts. And I know it's like all fogged up now because of everything that has happened, but like, I really liked Jalen Hurts in that draft. And then I was mad that the Eagles drafted him because at the time we had Carson Wentz. He was coming off of like his first full year where he looked good. So I never didn't not like Jalen Hurts. I just didn't like him on the Eagles. But like you said, yeah, I mean, we had conversation about him like going to the Bears. But again, all besides the point, that like it is funny that you do mention the whole Jalen Hurts thing, is because whether you like it or not, like Jerry can sit behind the podium and say, we just did this because it was a smart move and whatnot, and he was a good player for a good price, and we still have all the confidence in the world in Dak Prescott and whatnot. But it does say something because Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, and Howie sat behind the podium and said, we have all the confidence in the world in Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz is our starting quarterback, and we have no doubt about it. And look at where we are 3 years from now, or 3 years from that point. And I'm not saying Trey Lance is going to step in and be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys, but it has to at least ring a little bit of bells saying maybe they don't have enough confidence in Dak Prescott as they thought, especially after a kind of shaky training camp that he's had, at least due to all reports coming out here.
Yeah, I don't even have confidence enough to draft him in fantasy, let alone let him run my football team. You know what I mean? So,
he just led the league in interceptions and missed 3 games.
Yeah.
And interceptions are one of those things that like are back and forth, and then it's kind of hard to like, but still, like that's pretty impressive to lead the league in interceptions and not play an entire 17 games. So they have to at least be a little bit alarm bells ringing in their head.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, looking at everything there, I think we covered that. This one's also interesting. Texans cut linebacker Christian Kirksey and cornerback Desmond King. Both ran with the ones for Houston. At that point, I mean, this is veteran leadership right here. If you have a younger team, this is a huge opportunity to get them, I don't know. I'm sorry.
You're good.
You
and the thing too about the thing too, which is funny because Christian Kirksey like literally like got cut and then like didn't even make it through waivers. The Bills picked him up on waivers actually, which is solid pickup. But it's funny too that again that you bring up this whole young roster thing, because 2 of the first 3 quarterbacks drafted in this past draft like have super duper young teams. And I don't know how true this is, and I don't want to ramble on too much. But the Colts are the only team in the NFL that does not have a player over 30 on their roster. So
which is
every single player on their roster is in their 20s, and that is the youngest team in the NFL. And it just goes back to if you're gonna rebuild, at least give like your young guys a chance to at least show who they are and whether or not you need to move on from them or not. But it looks like they're completely handing over the reins over to both their young quarterbacks and the Texans and Colts here. Because like you said, I mean, you lose a guy like Desmond King or Christian Kirksey. I mean, that is a veteran leadership guy or leader that's in there that is no longer there, which we'll see how that goes.
They saved about $5.5 million with these cuts, and it just doesn't make sense because that's not a lot of money to be saving.
No.
And ultimately you're still in the rebuilding phase with a brand new quarterback. If you're CJ Stroud, in my opinion, you're kind of pissed. You're kind of mad just because, ultimately, you don't want, you don't want to be on the field, or no, you don't want to be on the field down as much and as you would be in a competitive setting, and losing two veteran presences definitely does not help that. And I apologize for the brief profanity that I almost slipped up on.
But I will say, I mean, both cuts do make sense. Because at linebacker, they went out and they have like two young guys that they do have high hopes for, in Christian Harris and Henry Toho. And then at cornerback, I'm a little surprised because I don't who. The big thing about Desmond King is that like he returns punts, so I don't know who's going to be returning punts and kicks for him now. But maybe it's just a matter of you want Derek Stingley to get as much run as he can, and Shaq Griffin. They went out, signed Shaq Griffin, but like they're like outside cornerback across from Derek Stingley is like Steven Nelson.
Yeah,
that one again doesn't make as much sense to me, but I do understand the Christian Kirksey thing. But yeah, I mean, if you're
horrified at this situation.
If you're CJ, you're a little bit mad when you're I don't know. It's gonna be rough.
It doesn't help that they don't have their first round pick going into the draft next year as well, and a team that's definitely I just want to look at their cap space going into it. Okay, so they have $87 million going into it for projected 2024, which is, it looks like the most. It's the most right now in the league. The Bears are projected 78, the Patriots are projected at 85. So ultimately looking at that, it's like it's not a great look. But it's hard to this is why I'm so adamant on this rebuild that we'll probably get into today a little bit, just because we are covering them a little bit more. But I'm so huge on it because not only did they have the financial resources in the Bears rebuild, they also had the draft capital, and they rebuilt through the draft, and they are getting younger, but they also signed quote unquote veteran presence, which is still under 30 years old, maybe even under 28 years old as well. They're looking at young, fast guys and everything. And it looks like Houston just isn't following that same formula. And I'm not saying the Bears formula has to be like, oh, this is perfect. This is the greatest thing to ever grace the sport of football. I'm just saying it's more so like, this is a good strategy to start off with if you're rebuilding in a completely new team. And I'm not entirely sure what the Houston Texans are thinking at the moment, because this is not a great direction to be headed in. I understand that you wanted CJ, and I understand that you also wanted Will Anderson. Those are two massive difference makers, but where do you go from there? It seemed like a very spur of the moment decision. And I know this is months after the draft, but like we're seeing how it plays out right now. And ultimately next offseason, it's going to be interesting. I do want to move in a little bit more, just because, we were just talking about them. The Bears cut PJ Walker and Travis Gibson, among other people, but these were like two of the most surprising cuts for the Bears. PJ Walker is surprising to most people on social media. Ben, I think I can speak for both of us when I say that it's not surprising to either one of us. In training camp, that was horrible. We looked at PJ Walker like, this man started a couple games in last season. Like, how? I did
Badgett looked good too.
Badgett won the QB2 race, so very happy about that. Nathan Peterman did get cut, but it looks like they're trying to keep him on the practice squad. PJ Walker got picked up. I forgot. The Browns picked him up. So that's something. Travis Gibson, Despite the trade rumors, first off, the Bears never intended on trading Darnell Mooney, so those were fake trade rumors that Ryan Poles himself said that he laughed at. And Travis Gibson never walked into the Bears front office and asked for a trade. Travis Gibson reported that himself on Twitter, and confirmed by Ryan Poles as well. Poles said that strictly this wasn't a personality thing. This wasn't anything personal between the Bears and Travis Gibson. There's still a lot of mutual respect and everything. It's just more so a scheme thing, and they're trying to get as many scheme guys as possible to fill these depth, holes. And Travis Gibson just didn't do that. It looked like he succeeded more in a 3-4. And so that's why Travis Gibson went and signed with the Titans, which is going to be a pretty decent fit. I'm really excited to see what he can do there.
Yes.
But that's a team that I can root for. I'm down. And it's actually a pretty decent team to go for as well. He might make a playoff appearance. Who knows? But we already talked about the Titans as well. We're not as high on them. I will say, I made a comment on the draft episode. If you guys didn't watch that, you guys don't have to. It was like an hour and a half long, but I did say that I'm a little bit higher on the Titans than I used to be. So I kind of corrected that. And now with Travis, it makes them all more fun to root for. But our final, no, go ahead. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
you're all good. I will say he has not officially signed with the Titans for those.
He announced it on Twitter.
Well, what he did with Twitter was he said something that says, he posted a thing that said buy Titans tickets, but he never came out and said, and then he said tighten up, let's go. But he has not officially signed anything. There's not we've seen stranger things happen where players don't actually go there. I just want we think he's going there, and it really looks like he's going there. But I do want to say he has not officially signed with the Titans, because there's been some weird and wild stuff that has happened in the NFL, and I'd hate for this to come back and bite us in the butt.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that as well, because I didn't see that he took that down. Who knows? I'm looking forward to it. One team that I didn't want him to go to was the Packers, and he didn't go there, so I'm cool with it. Finally, the Browns cut Anthony Schwartz. This guy was just a fun guy to watch in Cleveland. Nothing really too big here, but I just made it a point just because I liked him. Do you have anything else to add?
Nope, you caught it all.
All right, let's go ahead and move on.
You think you know football? Well, prove it. This is Pigskin Pick'em.
Ben, would you like to introduce who we're talking about today? Because I need a drink of water.
Well, like Ryan's previous said on last week's episode, we purposely saved these two teams to be the final two teams we talked about in the segment. Again, it lines up perfectly. We did it the reason we did it the way we did is so these two are the two teams that we talked about last. And so right when we're finished up with this, the season starts. But if you've been following along with us, you guys know at this point, the only two teams we haven't talked about are the two teams we're going to be talking about today. That's going to be the Packers and the Bears. Do we want to start off with the Packers and save the Bears for last?
I'm saving the Bears for last. Because that,
it's going to be rough. You're not going to like it, but I'm being realistic with mine, with the Bears and the Packers. So, but you're not going to like it. But it's okay.
You're going to be surprised.
We'll see.
All right. So Packers at Bears week 1. What do you think?
I think you're going to win. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you think the Packers are going to win? Is that what you said?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So I have them losing. Let's see here. Anyways, so I have the Packers losing here. Strictly because the Bears have this nice thing of winning on my birthday, or close to my birthday. So they're going to treat me. So when I turn 21, I don't have to be sad at the casino at midnight. Anyways, week 2 at Falcons. What do you think?
I think they're going to beat the Falcons as well. I think we're going to come away with this. think we'll probably have the same or close to the same record prediction, but I am a little bit higher on the Packers than I would say maybe the public is, but we'll see.
Okay. I have them winning against the Falcons. You said that you're a little bit higher on the Packers than the public is?
I would say just a little bit higher. Again, like I said, again, we are not 21. When Ryan turns 21, he will we'll like talk a little bit more about odds and whatnot. But just like based off of odds, if I were to bet, which I can't, I would be putting my money on the Packers win the division because their odds are just so much better. Like they're like only like 300 difference between the Bears and the Packers, and like I think the public is much lower on the Packers, and I think the public thinks the Packers are much closer to the Bears than what they are to even the Lions and Vikings, and I think they're closer to Lions and Vikings than they are the Bears.
Okay. I just filled out the rest of mine, so I'm good to kind of break it off in chunks if you want. I have them losing the next 2 games against the Saints and Lions here.
Okay. I have them losing against the Saints but beating the Lions. Like I said, I think they're much closer. Shocker. I have them splitting home and away with the Saints or with the Lions and Vikings for a home team and a away team. So that shouldn't shock anyone if you guys made it this far and listened to my other predictions for other teams.
I have them beating the Raiders and then losing against the Broncos and Vikings.
I have them beating the Raiders, losing to the Broncos, but then beating the Vikings.
Okay.
So
I have them beating the Rams, losing to the Steelers and Chargers.
As do I. Yep, beating the Rams, losing to Steelers and Chargers.
I have them beating the Lions, losing against the Chiefs, and beating the Giants.
I have them going on a little bit of a losing streak here with these 3 games. I actually have them losing to Lions, Chiefs, and Giants.
Okay. So we're on the same exact page for the Lions, I think, then. Just because you had them splitting. My only thing is, I'll tell you this one thing. It's really weird between the Packers and Lions because when the Lions are competitive, the Lions end up winning at Lambeau and losing at home.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm picking that.
Eagles and the Cowboys.
Yeah. I have them beating the Bucks, beating the Panthers, losing to the Vikings, and beating the Bears.
Yep. I have them closing out the same. So our schedule, I think I might be 1 game up. I have them finishing 9-8. Just about 500.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have them 8-9.
I was going to say we're 1 game difference from one another.
Yeah.
I have them.
I will say this: it's going to be
500, and you have them going below 500. 1 game difference. So
I will say this: the Week 18 matchup against the Bears is going to make me so mad because that's going to be the one that's going to knock the Bears out of wild card contention.
Wow, that is hot. I do not have the Bears to being that good. I do not have the Bears being that good. Oh, we'll get to it. I mean, we kept on pushing off this Bears talk eventually, and I guess this will be the time that we talk about it a little bit more.
You have the Packers sweeping the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
You're crazy,
dude. Once the Bears win, then it'll be fine. But the Bears can't win against the Packers. History shows it, and I know it's Aaron Rodgers, but I do not care. Once I see it, it'll be fine, and we'll talk about it. We'll jump right into it. Again, the Bears are going to lose Week 1 against the Packers. We'll jump into it. I have my concerns about Justin Fields. I understand that he's again. There's this whole discourse. Bragg's even talked about it and whatnot. Like you have to accept him for what he is right now. And you can't just view him as a passing quarterback. But I do need to see him to pass. And I think it's about time Packers or Bears fans have a conversation internally with themselves and need to say, we need to see this guy pass. You can talk about how good of a runner he is, which is fine. He's going to be a great runner. But you're a quarterback. You're not a running back. You need to pass the football just a little bit more. And you need to do it more efficiently and better than what you've done in the last few years. And from what we've seen so far, outside of that Week 1 game or that preseason Week 1 game where he only threw screen passes, he has not looked good passing the football. And that point blank period, that's what it is.
We'll see a change.
And you can't tell me I'm wrong
That's all I
either.
gotta
He has
say.
not. What?
It's not that he hasn't looked good, because he has looked good. It's just the general. He's had hot flashes to where he's gotten his moments and everything. It's just going to be more consistent in 2023.
He just isn't consistent. That's always been his issue. Like, again, that's like I'm saying, like, he has the ability, but he hasn't
My
done
thing
it
is,
consistently. And
it's
if you're not consistent, I don't care what you can do.
it's so tough to succeed with the receivers that he was given last year. It's
Yes.
the
And
year
that's why I was
before
hopeful,
that,
but-
he wasn't even given a full season, and he was still adjusting. So at first, I'll give him a break on his rookie season. Last year, I'm fully with you though. I think that this year is a straight up prove it year, but I think that this is going to be a takeoff year. I think that this is going to be a year to
I
where
hope so.
we'll see a lot. But anyways, so we already know what's happening week 1 against the Packers. What's happening against the Buccaneers? What do you think?
I actually against the Buccaneers? What?
Yeah, week 2.
I completely
Tampa
just
Bay.
left that game out of my schedule. I have them winning though. I can't believe I had that left out of the schedule, but I have them winning. So
I have them losing the next 2 against the Chiefs and Broncos. That Broncos game is going to be really close, though. I will say, it's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I have them losing the next 2 as well. But I'm assuming the reason you said next 2 is because you have them beating the Commanders.
I have them winning the next 3. Yeah,
winning the next 3. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
I do have them beating the Commanders, but I do have them losing to the Vikings. But then I do have them beating the Raiders. So the only difference in that span of games is the Vikings game. You guys just aren't on the Vikings level. I hate to break it to you, but that's where I'm at. But
that Vikings
it's okay.
game is the Jaquan Brisker breakout game. Let's see. I have them losing against the next 2 in the Chargers and Saints.
So do I. I'm going to touch on that comment, though. That comment, and not because of what you said, and it'll make sense once I finish what I'm saying. That comment that you just made about Jaquan Brisker having his breakout game, and I guess it makes sense that you say that because, again, we're not just a Bears podcast. We're not just an Eagles podcast. We're an NFL podcast. But, when I see NFL media talk about, Jaquan Brisker, breakout candidate this year and whatnot, it drives me off the walls because he has already been, the term breakout means that, he was bad and now he's going to be good. Jaquan Brisker was good last year. I think he's going to get the shine that he deserves, but I think he's going to be just as good as what he was last year. So it's frustrating to me in general when people say breakout because that implies that he was not good last year. And Jaquan Brisker was absolutely the best safety out of that draft class this past year and played a top 15-ish safety this past year. And he has been really good. I mean, that. So again, I'm not frustrated with you saying that because I'm sure most
it's
NFL
just a
fans
general
don't know that.
word.
Yes. But for those who don't know, just watch Jaquan Brisker play last year. You guys he will be talked about a lot more than he was this past year. But just know he has always been this good.
I'm going to switch something really quick. I'm going to have them lose against the Vikings at home, but beat the Saints in New Orleans. The reason why I'm doing that is because typically it seems like the Bears keep it a lot closer when they're playing the Vikings in Minnesota than when they're playing them at home. But when it comes down to the Saints game, I think that one's going to be really close. And I think that it's going to come down to a Cairo Santos buzzer beater kick or something, that's another one that's going to be really close. But I have them beating the Panthers, losing against the Lions, and then beating the Vikings and Lions.
I actually have them just going on a major losing streak here after this Panthers game. I'm just going to lay it out for you. I have them beating the Panthers, but then I have them losing the next 4 straight against the Lions, Vikings, Lions again, and Browns.
That's fair.
which is funny
Let's
because I'm not
see.
high on the Browns, and all season you've been like, be a little bit higher on the Browns, and this is a podcast that decided to be a little bit higher on the Browns.
I don't remember which one I ended on. Let's see.
You ended on the
Yeah,
Lions, so you didn't talk about the Browns game. If you should
the
probably
Browns
do the
game?
last
Okay.
4.
Yeah. I have them losing against the Browns, winning against the Cardinals, winning against the Falcons, and losing against the Packers.
Yep. As I said, I had them losing against the Browns previously, but those last 4 games look the exact same. I have them losing against the Browns, beating the Cardinals, Falcons, and then losing against the Packers. For me, that puts their overall record at 6-11. I think that's realistic. I think we will, after that rant I just went on, I do think we'll come back this season and say Justin Fields showed us what we wanted him to. But again, it still has to be a little bit of a concern. But 6-11, and I think they're going to be better than what their record shows.
So, looking at the, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So we have a 3-way tie for me, in the division at 9-8 between the Bears, Lions, and Vikings. Packers finishing 4th.
You have the
at
Bears
8-9.
going 9-8.
I do.
Holy delusion.
Let's see.
The Packers would be in front of the Bears because the Packers won the head-to-head. Well,
no,
or did you have the
Packers
Bears winning week
the
1?
Packers are last. The Packers are
Did you
last at
have
8-9.
the Bears winning week 1? Oh, the Packers are
doesn't
8-9.
matter.
I thought you said 9.
Yeah.
Are the Packers 8-9? You said
Packers are 8-9 in my predictions. Everybody else is 9-8.
you're telling me the Packers are going to finish worse than the Bears?
Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Do you want to make a friendly bet right now? I'll put $20 on that right now.
No, I don't know.
I'll put $20 on that right now.
But I'll do $10.
I'll do $10. Yeah, we'll make it. I'll make a note right now.
All right. Looking forward to getting $10 from you at the end of the season.
So I put it in the title here. Anyways, we'll regroup and everything. Anyways, that does it for the Pigskin Project, Pigskin Pick'em for the 2023 season for the schedule predictions. I'm going to try my absolute hardest. Now, keep in mind, same thing as last year. Every schedule is not consistent with every single team.
No, it is not.
I'm going to update it podcast to podcast, and eventually it'll fill out a playoff bracket for the standings that we had. So Ben, next week, what I will do is put that all together. We'll go over it before the season to kind of celebrate the start of the season. And from there, we'll do our, predictions as to what our Super Bowl would be in that scenario. Mm-hmm. It'll be fun. But, ladies and gentlemen, a return of a segment is here.
Pro football isn't the only game in town. Let's take a stroll to Ben's College Corner.
I'm going to step away for like half a second more. And by half a second, I mean maybe like a couple minutes. But, Ben, the show and floor is yours.
Yeah, man, you do your thing. So for those, again, we touched on it a little bit last week, but there was college football back last week. It was week 0. Kind of the only 2 games that we touched on that we thought were like of importance was that Notre Dame Navy game and the USC San Jose game. No surprise in either of those games. Notre Dame absolutely smoked Navy, and USC did good. I mean, they won by like 30 points, but I kind of would have hoped a little bit of a better, like a look for them. But, it is what it is. San Jose kind of consistently has been able to score points on teams they probably shouldn't have been able to do so. But Notre Dame, like their D-line, or not D-line, O-line, like it's going to be a question. If they played anyone other than Navy with a half-decent O-line and D-line, it's going to be questionable. I'm interested to see how they hold up for the rest of the season. But the number one thing when you were looking at Notre Dame was how was Sam Hartman, their like kind of golden snitch of their transfer portal class, their quarterback, how is he going to look in week one, and kind of in that Marcus Freeman offense. And he absolutely killed it when he played. It was not even close. He just made Navy defense look absolutely silly. But kind of as an outlook to this game, there's like 10,000 games being played this week. Again, I'm not going to go through and cover all of them just because it'd be an absolute waste of time, especially like week one, because week one is usually when you see these bigger time schools kind of playing these powder cake teams. Like, for example, like Oklahoma was playing Arkansas State. Like, that's just, or Michigan's playing like East Carolina. And like, so that's usually when you see these bigger teams playing these, like Oregon's playing Portland State, and like Ole Miss is playing like Mercy. So like it's just not like worth covering a lot of these like bigger name games. But there were like 5 or 6. Excuse me. There's 5 or 6 games I picked out that I thought were at least mentioned or like worth mentioning and whatnot. And the first one of that will actually be played tomorrow at 8:00. 8:00 my time, 8:00 Eastern time. So when I'm telling you guys these times, it's going to be Eastern time. Again, that's the time I live in. If you guys live in Central time, that'll just be an hour before what I'm saying. But the first like fun game is going to be Utah. I think 17th ranked Utah versus Florida, and it'll be interesting to see the whole quarterback situation there at Florida now that Anthony Richardson is gone. And Utah has always kind of been a team that feels the need to have to continue to prove themselves because they've kind of always been the powerhouse of the Pac-12, which, you know, they're leaving now. But it'll be fun to see that. And then as far as games on Saturday, which is kind of the slate we're a little bit more used to, the first game in that noon that I thought would have been really interesting is Tennessee versus Virginia. Tennessee is having Joe Milton, their quarterback, who reminds me so much of Hendon Hooker, which is really ironic, but just a more athletic, just Hendon Hooker, but like souped up that was made in the lab. Just a quarterback that has a really big arm and is like super mobile. I know he went to Michigan, so I know the whole, you know, Joe Milton experience there. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how he settles in. And then just look at Tennessee throughout the season with their freshman quarterback, Nico, who's a 5-star. He like had the most NIL money like in the history of college sports and whatnot. So throughout the season, it'll be interesting to see how that quarterback battle goes. And then Penn State versus West Virginia. Penn State in that game, the Tennessee-Virginia game is at 12 or at noon. And then the Penn State-West Virginia game is at Saturday at 7:30. Penn State is kind of a team people have come out of the woodworks about a little bit more and say, like, this is going to be a good team. I can't quite get there yet on Penn State just because they are coming in. They're bringing in a new quarterback. So this will be his first time starting. But they have the foundation there under their head coach to be a good team. And West Virginia isn't quite one of those powder cake schools. Like they should at least give a little bit of a competition. But West Virginia historically has not been good the past few years. But it'll be interesting to see how Penn State does. And if Penn State can prove me wrong when I say Penn State, I'm not quite there on Penn State. And then the other 7:00 game on Saturday that really piques my interest is UNC versus South Carolina. And that one is always just a fun game to watch because it's North Carolina versus South Carolina. There's a rivalry going there. Kind of the big storyline in that game is going to be your Spencer Rattler versus your Drake May. Drake May, widely regarded the second best QB in the class. Spencer Rattler, a name that NFL GMs have kind of been like, hey, watch out, this guy's going to be a little bit sneaky. Spencer Rattler, the former 5-star quarterback, number 1 ranked quarterback in his class, kid who transferred from Oklahoma to South Carolina, who's looked pretty good in the South Carolina system. So we'll see if Spencer Rattler can take that step forward, and if Drake May can solidify himself as the second best quarterback in this class. And then the last game, in the game I'm most excited for about this week, obviously outside of my Michigan game, but the game I'm most excited for this week is going to be your FSU versus your Louisiana State or LSU. And I know Ryan knows this, and I know a couple other people know this that I've kind of talked to, but I don't think I've like officially like stamped my claim on this. FSU is the school this year, at least, that I'm going to say outside of your like Georgia, your Michigan, your Ohio State, your Alabama, outside of like the powerhouses that you guys are used to seeing, Florida State is going to be that contender that not enough people are talking about just yet. But then I think after week one, when they go and they beat LSU, people are going to start talking about them a little bit more. FSU's offense is just wild. I think arguably they have the best quarterback, wide receiver, running back trio. Now people might argue for Ohio State just because of their running back and wide receiver, but Kyle McCord, we'll have to see what he does in the Ohio State offense. But FSU with Jordan Travis, Benton, the running back, and then Johnny Wilson, who I'm absolutely in love with. I always like to stake my claim on kind of a draft prospect that I think will rise up. Last year was Quentin Johnston, paid out kind of well for me. When I said he was going to be a first round pick, he was. Johnny Wilson's going to be that guy for me this year. He's like 6'7", a dude that size should not be playing wide receiver, but he manages to just make everyone look silly. So I think this is going to kind of be FSU's coming out party. People are going to start looking at him a little bit more. But Brian Kelly there at LSU really has a chance right here against playing FSU and stamping his claim and say, see, this is going to be the LSU team that everyone wanted to see last year with Jaden Davis, their quarterback. So I think, again, these are all a couple good games. Your college team is probably playing this week. So just keep an eye out for that. Like, I know OSU, they're coming to Bloomington this week and actually playing. I have tickets for that. So if you're in the Bloomington area and you want tickets for that, let me know because I will not be going to that game because I work. But your team is probably playing this week. So just watch out for your team. If they're a bigger name school, they're probably playing a small school that you've never heard of before. But it's good to have college football back. Oh, and then the last game I didn't talk about in the 3:30 slot on Saturday is going to be Washington versus Boise State. That's more just me looking at Washington. Michael Penix has kind of been like your Heisman dark horse, someone who looks to hopefully make a name for himself and be a first-round quarterback this year. He's had injury issues. I don't know if he's ever going to be in that conversation or whatnot, but they have a really good quarterback and then two really good outside wide receivers. I would say probably the second best wide receiver tandem in college football outside of, sadly, Ohio State. But like I said, it's just good. I could go on for hours talking about college football, so I'm not going to talk your guys' head off too much. I'm going to kind of let Ryan kind of say his piece, and then we can move on to that last segment. Last game, too, that I forgot about on Monday as well, 8 o'clock, Clemson versus Duke. That's always a fun one. There's a little rivalry there. Clemson's going to win, but it's just another fun rivalry game to watch out for. But Ryan, any thoughts, opinions, or whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm overall just pretty. I'm looking forward to. Colorado and TCU as a team. There is a game that I'm really looking forward to, given the fact Deion's coaching. It's really interesting there just to see what they could put up. I think ultimately with TCU, they made some noise, but it's time to show put up or show up type thing. Obviously you already said Tennessee and Virginia. That'd be interesting as well. I'm going to be watching Ohio State and Indiana. It's going to be awesome.
Hey, if you can find your way down here, I'll give you a ticket for it.
Hey, I would love to. I doubt that that's going to be a thing that I'll be able to do. Anyways, so let's see, LSU and Florida State is going to be amazing, and then good old fashioned Tulane is going to be great as well. So it's going to be an awesome week. Football's back. It's going to be amazing. But ultimately, I think that it's time to move on to our next segment. What do you think?
Yes.
It's time for America's favorite game, Weddle.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm very excited for this just because Did they change their background, or am I just stupid? What's going on here? Did Weddle change to white? That's weird. Anyways, let me.
They were like a
show you.
light blue.
That's what I thought, but now it's this. Let me move this really quick. I'm so sorry. And now there's ads everywhere.
Yeah.
Huh. Great. Awesome. Not sponsored by iRobot. Anyways. Is there? Yeah, that's so weird. All right, cool. Well, I guess I'll start us off.
Don't like that.
Yeah, it's really ugly. I'll start us off. Give me Cole Kmet. Wow, that's nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, this is hideous.
What
dude.
a pull.
Awesome.
There's no way it's this guy, but give me Josh Allen. Oh, we're really killing it.
Oh man, this is a great start.
Older
AFC
wide
guy,
receiver running back in the AFC.
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, you get a little bit closer
Your
here.
favorite.
31. It's a wide receiver that either plays for the AFC North or South.
I'm thinking. I think
it's
I know.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay, so I don't know. 31. DeAndre Hopkins.
There it is.
This is hideous, dude. I hate this.
Yeah, no, it's not my favorite. That's for sure.
All right. I'll go first. All right. He seems a lot bigger than 6'4" in person. Just saying.
I bet he does. Brandon Graham.
Did I read a report that he's available for trade?
No, you did
No.
not.
Okay.
Well, this should be easy for me.
We'll
see.
6'4"?
Let's hope you get it here, because if you don't get it on this guess, I will probably get it. I don't have like an idea of where I'm going here.
Dang it. Well, that gives it up.
Well,
yeah, that gives it up.
It could be. I'm deciding between two guys here. Like, my head says Fletcher Cox just because of like everything here, but the whole thing is Fletcher Cox is. I'm almost certain Fletcher Cox is 32, so it should have lit up. And Fletcher Cox is what it was a couple weeks ago. I mean, I'm gonna go with Fletcher Cox, but that just doesn't seem right to me. Okay.
Wow. Well, that was a hideous version of Weddle. Not a fan of that. Ben takes a 12-point lead.
Woo!
And we made our friendly bet today. So that's huge.
Yes.
So anyways, thank you guys for sticking around. Ben, do you have any closing comments?
Nope. College football is back. Football will be back a week from tomorrow. Stay safe if you guys are going to a college football game. Don't do anything stupid. And just remember to enjoy yourself. Go Packers.
Go Packers, he says. Jesus.
Go Pack, go.
Anyways.
Oh, by the way, that fantasy belt's going to look really good back here. But no, I'm done.
No, yeah. I can't wait for our trade to process, dude. My team's going to look so nice. Anyways, for those of you that watched the trade or the draft, I guess we should maybe tell people what happened. So Ben and I made our first, team trades, our team's first trades of the season. I gave him Derek Carr, TJ Hawkinson, and Jalen Waddle, and he gave me Keenan Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and Pat Freiermuth.
For those wondering too, I was in desperate need / want to get rid of Keenan Allen. If you guys don't know that or why that is, go back, watch it, skip to like the 22-minute marker, 26-minute mark, I think is what it is. skip to the 26-minute mark. I don't want to explain myself any more than go back.
We'll post it on
Started
TikTok
from
or
26
something.
minutes. Yeah.
Anyways, and then on top of that as well, so David, our champion that picked a 10, traded with Wombles that drafted at 7, I
Absolute
think.
steal.
Tyler Lockett and Breece Hall for
8.
KJ Osborne and JK Dobbins. Dude, it's always like whenever Wombles has something going for him, it seems like David just pries it away from him. It sucks. So yeah, that's going to be a common theme that we'll probably see on the podcast when we announce the trades and stuff like that for people that want to keep up with it. But I think that does it for this week's episode of the Pigskin Project. We want to say thank you to Regional Radio Sports Network, Uppercut Grooming, Overtime Sports Network, and Spotify for podcasters. We want to give a big thank you to anybody that stuck around this week. And at the end of the day, please leave us a comment, subscribe, do anything like that to be able to help promote the podcast in any way that we can. And from there, we'll see you guys next week. Go Bears.